tell all, and oh, do they have a lot to say. Welcome to Play in the Field, the Bachelor podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Field, the sports anchor here at WABC in New York City. Joined now, as always, by our two favorite ladies, Jen Matarese, our Bachelor insider from here at WABC in New York, and from KABC out there in sunny Los Angeles, Gina Sirico, our Bachelor insider. What's going on, everybody? How's everybody doing? Great to see everyone. Oh my goodness, what an episode. There was a lot to digest. I feel like I'm in the majority here by saying there were several times I just wanted to turn the volume down, put it on mute altogether as they were just screaming over each other.
I don't know how Jesse got through that recording.
That's a great point.
I felt so bad for him. And I also felt kind of bad for Grant having to just face the music and deal with all of that. And Gina was actually at...
I was just about to bring that up.
How was it?
And Gina, now we should point out to the listening audience and the viewers that you were there for the taping. We know you can't pull back the curtain on all the secrets, but give us a sense of what you saw in the taping to what we actually viewed over the air this week. Did they touch on all the points that they needed to? Were there any things that you were surprised that they left out?
I will say that it was the vibe of being very loud and women talking over each other. That was definitely carried over. Like, we did see a lot of that. I feel like, yeah, I'm with you. I always feel bad for Jesse when he has to do these, when women tell all and men tell all, because there are times, like this time and in previous moments, that we have seen that it just gets, like, it's like herding cats. Like, you have to just try and get them to listen, and you can't. And, you know, it's happened with the guys as well. The only time it doesn't happen is when, you know, we're you know, in golden seasons, you know, because it's just not dramatic. It's very inspiring. But that being said, yes, there were a lot of people who had a lot of things to get a lot off of their chests. And they did that.
And one of the things I've always wondered, TV magic, the episodes are about an hour and 25 minutes, no commercials. How long was the taping from start to finish? How much did they cut out? Give us a sense of that.
Remember when Jesse joked about it being 6 hours?
Yeah. In
the episode? It wasn't that long. It was, I would say, maybe double that.
Wow.
They had a little break, you know, for the audience. They, you know, I feel like I'm not violating anything by saying that, you know, they're taping and they have a little break magic, and then that's it.
But it just gives you a sense of what they have to, the difficulty in trying to trim, let's just say, a 3+ hour shoot into an hour and 20 minutes.
And there's the setup. There's bringing people out. There's miking them, getting them all ready.
Yeah, right. And when we get right to it, the women all come out. And, of course, my girl Kolina is wearing the jacket that says, "What's your question?" on the front, "Crazy and Evil" on the back. The Kolina show, she has definitely, I think now that she's watched this back, bought into her role as the quote-unquote villain this season. And I know, Jen, you and Gina both feel like she very much was, you know, the villain in a lot of respects. Not villain in a bad way, I guess, but definitely the person that everybody seemed to gang up on this season.
I just felt annoyed that, like, it was always about her. It was always, like, some kind of drama revolving around her. And as soon as I saw that coat, I was like, oh, here we go. It's one thing to, you know, make a joke about it, but, like, she actually means it. You know, she means that she's sort of, you know, there for the drama in a way, you know, but she can't really seem to take it when it comes in her direction. And no one likes to feel ganged up on, but if you're putting it out there over and over and over again, what result do you expect?
Sure. And Gina, I think she came in, and I think it was Saraphina who maybe said that she came in on the defensive. And listen, and part of the thing of pulling the curtain back behind these shoots is these women, much like during the show, they're having some alcoholic beverages before they go out there to help ease the nerves. So how much of that plays a factor into all of this, I'm not sure. But also the fact that, you know, she knew that the women were going to kind of come at her, Gina, and that's exactly what ended up happening. So I guess my question to you is, did she come out like she was on the defensive to you? And if you were in her shoes, how would you have played it knowing that the women were going to have a lot to say about her, having watched the season back like we have?
Well, first of all, I don't know that alcohol actually plays a part into this. You know, it's not like they're all in a green room and,
I'm not saying
having
they're getting
cocktails.
wasted.
So I'm
but
just saying that that's
I mean,
not like what in my experience, as far as my experience goes, they're not like liquoring up like they are, like they've had, like it's not readily available like it is in the mansion.
Got it.
When they're having. So that's number one. Number two, I feel like, as I've said before, like Carolina is not a villain per se, but she knows how to get the attention to her. And she did that from the jump here. She did that going in. She was saying stuff on TikTok and Instagram stories. She did that going in. She wore the jacket knowing that it was going to get her attention, and also called it the Carolina show. So that's number one. So going in, she already knows she's whether she's got her guard up or whether she is doing that by design. I'll leave that up to her and her God. But like she knew that that all eyes were going to be on her, and she made the most of it. She made everything about her. She played the victim again through all of it, is everybody hates me and nobody liked me and I, all that stuff. And then she tried to put it on Grant, like Grant is, I want Grant to be out here when we talk about this because he needs to take accountability. Everybody kind of took their part, like owned their part of it. And Carolina was just kind of like, I want Grant to take accountability and this and that. So to me, I don't know. I mean, if you're asking what I would do, I mean, look, first of all, I would not have maybe made it so that I was a villain and that everybody hated me.
Well,
I
right, but
knowing
what's happened and how, like, that's my question. Knowing what has already transpired, how would you have handled it if you were her coming into this?
I mean, she did what she was going to continue to do. She made herself the center of attention. And I guess if that was my thing, then maybe that's what I would have done too. But, it's not really, I don't operate like that, but that's me.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, and everybody would have handled things differently. I think that she was, knowing full well what was going to be awaiting her when she got there. And even I didn't blame her when she was kind of like, let me finish talking. And the women were just talking over her. They're like, you've talked enough. But then they would ask her a question and not let her finish it without the women jumping in. And, frankly,
because she was lying a little bit
the
there.
Women Tell All is the one episode, or the Men Tell All is like my least favorite episode of the season. I don't really get much from that.
I agree.
It's kind of just a big headache. If they went ahead and did away with that episode, I don't think a lot of people would be disappointed.
There are
about it.
diehards for these, though. Is it, like, there's people who
There
love
may
it.
be, but I think the majority of people might think that like you and I do.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know. How do we take a poll on this? We definitely need
We're gonna need to.
I'm going to start asking everybody because, people can leave it in our comments and on YouTube and elsewhere. Because I'm curious what they think about the tell-alls.
Yeah, and then we had the TikTok drama between Dena and Carolina.
I was surprised they played that.
Yeah.
I was too.
I mean, they kind of had to address it, right? I mean, it was the elephant in the room.
They were like, let's watch it.
Let's watch it together. Yeah, I mean, I didn't have an issue with that. I mean, and listen, I thought they had buried the hatchet, to Jesse's point, in the rose ceremony where they had kind of said that. And then I think, again, there was some miscommunication because Dena, according to her social media post on TikTok, she was responding to what happened in the episode. And Carolina took it as she was talking about something else outside of the episode. Yes, exactly. And then Carolina felt like she needed to chime back. So this whole thing has just been one giant mess. And frankly, I'm glad that it's all behind us and we can now focus on the final 3 women that are left in this season.
I just feel like if there's a way to take something wrong in any which way, Carolina will find it.
Yeah, well, again, how much of that is her being jaded by everything that had happened,
That's
and of
true.
course watching it back. And again, she said when she sat down with Jesse that she never came after any of these women. She never said any disparaging remarks about any of the women, never commented on their jobs, their looks, never said they were this or that. Like, she just basically found herself defending herself most of the season. Now, I will say, a lot of that was of her own doing. She brought it upon herself. But at the end of the day, I think any of us in that position would have kind of responded the way that she did. If you got people coming at you, you're going to stand up for yourself. I think that's exactly what's going to happen.
She should stand up for herself when warranted. But I think if you're going to isolate yourself and kind of bring down the tone of the group dates and make it about you, you're going to get some backlash. It's just going to happen.
Yeah. Well, listen, and it's definitely, there was a lot of backlash. There was a lot of back and forth. We finally had like a moment of peace when Alex came into the hot seat. I love that they brought the llama out there. That was a pleasant surprise. The llama was back.
I needed the llama.
We all needed the drama. You can never have we needed the drama. Save the drama for your llama, as we said earlier this season. They brought the llama back. She goes into the hot seat. And listen, she went from the first impression rose to basically kind of falling off the map this season, and it was a far fall from grace, Gina, in terms of Alex's relationship with Grant.
I wouldn't wouldn't call it a fall from grace, but she explained it. She had that first one-on-one, and it went great, and we all went, oh, okay, this could be, she could be the one. But as he went on other dates, things got closer and she fell behind. It's not like a fall from grace. He still really has a lot of respect
I know what you
for
mean.
her.
Yeah, fall from grace in the sense that
she was hot and then she wasn't.
She was hot and then she wasn't. And that was through no fault of her own, but it just ended up happening that way. And as we said, Gina was there at the taping, and she had a chance to talk to Alex. Gina, this was before or after the taping was over?
This was so all of the interviews take place after the taping is over.
Gina had a one-on-one with Alex, and here's how it sounded.
First of all, I have a beef with whoever brought in Linda the llama that they didn't bring them back here. Bring her back.
For the interviews. Absolutely. And to kiki with the girls back there. I know.
I was very sad.
I know. I was really happy in general. No, now that she's not here, but that they brought her. I never expected that. I thought, we were never going to see each other again. And then we saw each other, that spark. I was like, wait a second.
Best reunion ever, I feel.
Best reunion ever. I love the girls, but Linda's my girl. Yeah. I was so nervous that night. And the fact that I had her by my side just took all the nerves away. So just seeing her, I was like, just thank you, Linda.
Who knew there was an emotional support llama
in the house? Yeah, no, she really was. And I don't know if you guys saw, I have I got it from my one-on-one, a stuffed animal. And and every time I'm crying, every scene, I'm like holding her, I'm like, yeah. So I still sleep with it.
I love that. All right, let's talk about tonight. Yes. Let's talk about going into tonight, how did you feel? And then coming out of tonight, how did you feel?
My heart was racing. I think I laid it out all on the table, and I, just thanked him for the journey. And, I was just very, grateful that he, gave me the first impression rose, and I think he knows that. And no, I think I don't have any regrets for tonight. Having that first one-on-one is like a double-edged sword, because it's hard, you don't know the person at first, so it's like you don't want to just say everything about yourself. And so then because of that, I think it was really hard to catch up to the other women, right? So still very grateful that I had that date. It was fun. We had so much laughs, but I think that played in my disfavor for sure.
But you were historic, where you had like this different kind of one-on-one, which I kind of loved. So
it's so funny. I keep saying, oh my gosh, I was at this Target a month ago at this mall. Great. Nice. I know this place. Beverly Center. But it's okay. We made the most of it, honestly. Compared to the other dates, sure, was it a little bit less extravagant? Sure, but honestly, that's not what matters. I did want to jump off a building, yes, but we had so much fun that day that it doesn't matter.
I was like, I love that date.
It's more intimate. It's more realistic. How often do you jump off a building, which I would still want to do that, but off a building with your romantic partner? Ever, never, or rarely.
Well, maybe when you go to Paradise, that'll be something that you do on a date.
Hopefully.
I feel like you would have a lot of fun. I feel like that's some place you could probably really thrive.
I feel so too. I am definitely, not that I'm not a serious person, but you saw me tonight. I'm just things come out and I'm like, why did I say that? So I feel like definitely Paradise is more my speed, more in my wheelhouse. So we'll see. Who knows?
Do you have any boys in mind? Any guys in mind already? Or your eye on any?
No, but I keep hearing from people that me and Jonathan, our personalities would really mesh well. So we'll see. But then I keep saying, like, are we going to be bouncing off the walls? Who knows? I don't know. We'll see.
And Gina, what was your biggest takeaway from your one-on-one with Alex?
That she loves the llama so very much.
Also,
The Dalai Lama?
Gina, I have to say, I was shocked that she kind of thought her one-on-one date was underwhelming as far as it wasn't jumping off a building.
Yeah, and
or
she
whatever.
didn't get to go to Vegas in a private jet.
I was
mean,
like, but you have a whole mall all to yourself. Maybe this is because I grew up in the 80s and 90s. So like, I love a good mall. And it was a huge mall. I mean, that's pretty cool.
And we did say that was one of our favorite dates in this franchise.
I love that date. I love that date. And, to be honest, like, I have been to that mall a million times. It was in the mid to late 90s and, early 2000s. Like, it was the place to go. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So for me, I'm like, I love the Beverly Center. I did have like a little kinship with it. So for me, I loved that date so much. It's understandable because she was in if you look at it just from, just plain facts here, she was in an abandoned mall and like, Juliana's date was in a castle with, all these different things. So it's, it is different. And she wasn't like, rappelling off a building, so it is different in that way. But I will say that, we also talked about Paradise. And I asked her if she was, would be interested in going. And she said that she felt like Paradise might be more like her speed. And more, because a lot of people were asking about whether she would be Bachelorette, which I could see. But then also she was talking about, Bachelor in Paradise being more her thing and her vibe. And I could absolutely see it. And I could absolutely see her thriving there. We also talked about our friend Jonathan, who people keep saying that they would be like a good fit. And I told her he's a good guy. Yeah, I told her he's a good guy, that he's a good guy. And she was like, oh, that's good to know.
Did you say that you would supervise and chaperone their date at Disneyland?
I would, yes. Yeah. I would absolutely do that. I would.
You're one for one.
I would absolutely third wheel that date.
Yeah,
Chalk
absolutely. So Saraphina then comes into the hot seat next. And you know what? I'm over Saraphina. I really am.
Wow.
She had a lot to say, and she was not really a consequential figure in this season, in my opinion. Yeah. Jesse asking her, at what point did you know you were falling in love with Grant? Girl, you had one date with this guy, and now you're falling in love with him.
So did everybody else.
Yeah, but come on, Gina. Come on. Don't throw... I realize it's a reality show.
Don't forget the mini group date.
But don't... It's one thing to say once you get to the one-on-ones at the end after a night in the fantasy suites that you're falling for someone, maybe okay. But don't throw the love word around. You had one date with the guy. You jumped off the bridge. Come on. When
Is
she
that
said
where
that,
I went wrong in all my past relationships?
maybe so. You dropped the L word too soon.
No.
I will say that I liked the moment with her mom, that they had her there, that she had watched the kiss. I thought that was very cute. Or she didn't watch the kiss. She had to turn away when the kiss took place.
I love that they had her mom on.
Yeah, that was
so sweet.
That was a very
really
cool
sweet
moment. And Gina had a chance to catch up with Saraphina after her time in the hot seat.
Saraphina, you gave us, to me, like what I said was like one of the realest moments in reality TV when you said that you were like mindful of the kissing because of your mom. Yeah. I love that. Like, did it feel good to just like be like, yeah, that's exactly what it is?
So I didn't even think about the moment. I am a really honest person to a fault. It gets me in trouble. But that's how I felt. Like, he was like, we're not making out enough. I was like, well, because my mom's watching. I'm so sorry. I don't know how else to approach it. But I feel good. Like, it was an honest conversation, and it's funny, and that's my humor.
And I love that mom was brought in again today.
Oh my God, she's a star. Apparently she's going to be the Golden Bachelorette, I hear. So we're excited for that. So this is not the last you'll see of me.
Jesse was making the pitch for it. I'm like, yes.
And she looked stunning. I love her so much.
Let's talk about tonight. Mom aside, talk to me about kind of just how you felt going into tonight and then just coming out of tonight.
Yeah. So going into tonight, in terms of the girl drama, I really felt like we would have an honest conversation and kind of come together as a group. At the end of the day, we did an experience that only a few girls will ever know about and experience. And I feel just not great that it wasn't resolved on all fronts, because the majority of us are really good friends, and we all talk all the time, and I really wish this could have been like a more coming together moment, and I don't think anyone came on the defense to begin with, so it just kind of sucks that we didn't end as positively as I would wanted to.
It really did feel like kind of what was happening on site in the house, on the dates, etc., was kind of happening here tonight too.
Yeah.
Is that my correct assessment in that?
Yeah, I agree. I feel like there's a constant defense when everyone's just trying to come from a loving place. And it's really sad to see that we couldn't resolve that tonight fully.
I think that's okay.
Yeah.
I think, you know what, it's kind of like, when I look at it, I'm just like, look, it is what it is. You're not going to change, like, that she's steadfast.
Yeah.
You guys are all kind of, you all stand on your business. She stands on hers. Grant stands on his. So it's kind of like, yeah, okay, here we go.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, it is what it is.
Let's move on to just what's coming ahead. Obviously, you were there, up until recently, you saw the interactions that Grant had. Do you have an idea, like, who you think he might be leaning toward?
I don't know. I feel like you guys got out of goal. I feel like you guys all gotta tune in and see. Yeah, we have no idea.
And then also, we mentioned, Paradise was mentioned tonight. Yeah. It's always fun to watch. Would you be open to going? Do you think that would be something?
I don't know. You got to get some good prospects for me. My standards are high these days, so we got to see. I do have a lot of bathing suits, though, so I'm not opposed. But yeah, there has to be someone that I really want to see.
Gina, what was your biggest takeaway from what Saraphina had to say?
She's ready for what's next. I mean, I think she's, as you mentioned, like they're at this point, after Women Tell All, they're all very much past, and like gotten to the next level of whatever their relationship with Grant was. So they have their closure and all of that. And I feel like she's definitely ready for what's next. She also said that she wished that they could have resolved the drama from the night, and that wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
As we've all found out.
As we've all found out.
My favorite girl was up next.
Funky Cole Medina?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I like my nickname for her. I was just
That's
saying that in
good.
the office watching the thing last night.
Giving absolute Legally Blonde vibes.
Absolutely. Yeah. She had the glasses on, pulling. Yeah, she's kind of like a legal paralegal, if you will. Had the paralegal look going
She's a
last
legit
night.
She's a
lawyer, though.
She's a whole lawyer.
She is a lawyer, and she was buying into that whole mantra last night. I thought she looked great, but clearly she has a lot of let's call it emotional PTSD from this situation. And I thought when Grant was in the hot seat and she started asking with the question that she wanted to ask him about the family thing, and she just had this breakdown.
I remember when you had sent me home, we had talked about, or you said it's not because of anything to do with your family. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And I have to say I was a little bit shocked when I was watching the episode and you had said, I think this is going to be your make or break situation with Dena's family not buying in. And I couldn't help but feel a little shocked by that because you had never expressed that to me. And all that is to say, like, if I made you feel like you couldn't express that, I'm sorry for that.
Dena, that's not that. Listen, you're amazing and you're wonderful, and your family not being there was not the reason.
So I think what people have to remember is when they taped this in the fall, she obviously was feeling some type of way when Grant told her that she wasn't going to be in the top 3. So then you're kind of reeling from that, right? And then everybody else gets to watch it a couple of months later. And then you have to watch it all back and then relive the whole thing. And now you have all these friends and family and maybe friends that you haven't spoken to in a long time watching you on this show and being like, well, oh my God, what happened? And now you kind of have to relive this thing all over again.
Yeah.
And I feel like she's still processing a lot of what went wrong. And frankly, maybe not even what went wrong, but why Grant did what he did and didn't pick her there.
I think it was good for her to have the chance to talk to him again, and hopefully it gave her some closure. I hope so.
Yeah.
And she can move on from that, because I think maybe he just knew she wasn't the one, at the end of the day, and there's nothing she could have done to change that. Sure, it would have been nice for him to meet her family, but if she wasn't the one at the end of the day, it wouldn't have mattered. And I liked what he said about, if I had chosen you, there would have been time
to meet the
do
family,
that.
of course. And I think she was kind of going, oh my goodness, when she saw the interview back during the show where he said, yeah, this is make or break about not meeting her family. And I think ultimately she felt that that was the reason why he decided not to pick her. But then he explained that was not the reason why. He just didn't feel as strongly as he did.
I think
about
as she
the
watches the finale, if he chooses somebody and she sees how strong that connection is, that'll also be like he really, felt super strongly about these other people. And, maybe we just didn't get there.
Yeah, and maybe she's thinking, well, you picked Zoe over me, and I guess I can't blame her for thinking that, considering she didn't even get a one-on-one. But Gina also spoke with Dena after the taping, and here's how that interview went.
Your relationship with Grant, you challenged him in a way that I'm not sure that he has ever been challenged before, and I loved it. So talk to me about now that you're out of it, you've come through, you've been through tonight. Just talk to me about how you're feeling about how all of that went.
I think I'm happy with the way things worked out, because I think at the end of the day, our connection and our relationship went as far as it could. Ultimately, my family not being a part of it, I think was a big breaking point. Even when I lived it, I didn't realize what a big breaking point it would be, and what an effect it would have on me, even thinking about an engagement in 2 weeks, and I think for him too. So that was huge. But I think ultimately moving forward, he was always telling me I'd never had a girl that was so willing to also show up in the relationship in that same way, or be kind of your supporter in more ways than just emotional. I can be there for you, I can work hard, and you can also work hard, and we can build something, and it's not always just you. It doesn't always have to be on you. Don't get me wrong, I like a man who provides, and I will always welcome that, but I'm never going to be someone that's not working. I'm never going to be someone that's not pulling my weight in every which way. And so I think he had a really hard time in the beginning reconciling, wait, I'm the man, why does she also want to do it? We're in this boat on our one-on-one, and he's rowing it, and I'm seeing he's doing a good job, but I'm I just want to help you. I just want to also be there and also help you row the boat. And he's wait, I can do it. It's totally fine. I haven't been around someone that's always trying to do something for me as well. But I'm like that, and I think that I take after my dad a lot, and he's very much like that and very overpowering, wants to do everything. So yeah, I think I have those qualities, and I brought that out in Grant, where he's just okay, maybe I like this. Maybe I never considered being around someone who's strong and independent and knows what they want. And so yeah, I'm glad that I was able to do that for him.
I also feel for you guys there was no holds barred, and he trusted you because you're just I'm not going to BS you. Yeah. And I loved that, and I love the fact that he was just you are somebody I trust. Tell me what you can. Yeah. It must have felt nice for you too, right?
It did feel really, really good, because I think too he saw that I wasn't ever going to tell him what he wants to hear, ever. And I don't want anyone to tell me what I want to hear. I want to know the truth, and I want to know what you're actually feeling. So I'm going to bring up Carolina, but when he asked me about Carolina in Madrid, even though it wasn't shown, that's kind of how the conversation went. I really trust you in the house. Girls are telling me this. What's your take on it? And I said, well, without invalidating the other girls, because I don't want to do that, my experience hasn't been that. She's been positive. I said all these great things, and that's just, that's been my experience. You're asking about mine. If you're going to ask me what's going on in the house and what other girls are feeling, I may say something different, but you asked about my opinion, and so I gave it. In Scotland, when my views changed, I had to tell him that as well. So I wasn't going to let him run under the assumption someone that he trusts and he sees as his mom. I was as his mom, I have to tell him how I feel. I can't.
But it's he didn't mean it that way. But then it's
but I'm that's why I feel obligated. I feel a duty to tell you that my feelings have changed, and this is why. And so I don't want you going into hometowns making a decision based on something that I said in Madrid. So now I've seen what the other girls have been seeing. I've seen just how, without saying too much, it's just my feelings had changed, and I felt an obligation to tell him that, because if he was going off of what I was saying in Madrid, then that would be doing a disservice to him, because he trusted me to come to him with my thoughts and feelings on that situation. And so that's the only reason I didn't. It wasn't to spite. It wasn't to throw her under the bus at all. I would have never done it had he not had that trust in me and asked me in Madrid. I would have never done it. Like it is with the show, there's always so much more, and there was a lot more. I think they showed a very small amount of it. And even then, I think people got a good idea of what was going on. But honestly, even me watching it back, like, for example, when she was causing a bit of a ruckus in Madrid, let's go back to the puppy date. When she came back from her one-on-one date and she was in the pouty mood and she was, questioning a bit of, Grant's character, and is he really a gentleman? Is he a player? Is he this? I wasn't really around that because I was on a puppy date. And then, we were in Madrid, and same thing. I was on my one-on-one date while she's causing a bit of a ruckus during the group date, so I wasn't a part of it. And then moving on from that, Scotland, I was like, oh, I'm seeing what everyone else is seeing. And I thought because we had this baseline level of respect and friendship for one another that I could come to her and say, like, this is not cool. Like, you've taken this whole day from us. And she would come at, and granted, I could have said it with more kindness. I could have been more soft about it. I really regret that in the way that I delivered it. I wish I would have been a lot more understanding about it. But the fact of the matter is I thought she had enough respect for me and our friendship to be able to have a conversation. And instead she stonewalled me. And it was just cattiness, a little, condescending remarks, things like that. And so it was so hard to reason with her at that point and level with her. And I just blew up. And so, yeah, I think viewers saw a little bit of what was going on. And even I saw a little bit because a lot of the time, I was doing my own thing and I had heard from other girls or I've seen, those parts of her. But because I was so willing to see the good side. I was so willing to be her friend and try to be understanding. And you have to remember, my connection with Grant isn't that strong in the beginning. And so I'm not as affected by the negative things that she's saying about the questioning of his character. I'm just oh, I can't believe you think that, But once I got to know Grant, I was like, oh, that's really not cool because I'm not seeing that. And he's not these things that you're saying. And so it started to affect me more. And so then I got a little bit more emotional, a little bit more invested in, what she was saying, and it just was rubbing me the wrong way.
Here's what I think about Dena. Just overall, I feel like she is very in tune to how her own brain operates. She said, when she was on the hot seat, she will take a moment, process it, and then put her emotions away and feel things later. And I really do feel like that kind of is what happened with her this week on the Women Tell All. I feel like she probably processed and then put everything away and then playing it all back and reliving it again after reliving it from watching it. I do feel like it probably welled up and that's why she got teary. She and I talked about just what she brought to the table for Grant. And I think that, as we have said here on this podcast, she kind of opened his eyes a little bit to the kind of relationship he could have, where it's a true partnership. And it's something that I think that he had not thought about before. And she really brought that to the forefront for him. I do feel like whoever she ends up with is going to be extremely lucky because she's going to be a great partner.
Yeah, she brings a lot to the table.
Yeah, ultimately, when that, she's an independent woman, but she also likes to have a, companionship and a couple and a partner. And I think that is so key. So, I mean, I wish her the best. I think she's great.
Yeah, I like her a lot, and especially her whole take on relationships and how, a woman can bring so much more to a relationship than it is often perceived, and how much pride she takes in being able to do that in her relationship with men. And, she talked about her family. They were divided. Half were okay coming on the show. Half were not. Ultimately, they decided not to. But I have a feeling she seems very strong-willed, great head on her shoulders, that she's going to be just fine when this is all said and done. Which brings us to someone who...
The main event.
The main event. Dun, 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 dun. Which brings us to someone that we're going to keep the main thing the main thing.
Would they be so toxic together?
Sam
and
just
Carolina?
Absolutely perfect for each other. Who knows?
That's a show.
A little Paradise preview right there. Did we just
Paradise
put that
preview.
out there?
So listen, we've talked a lot about Carolina already on this season, during this season, and of course in this episode. I think my biggest takeaway from her one-on-one with Jesse when she was in the hot seat was this. And both of you ladies and our listeners know how I feel about Carolina. And I think she was one of the most real people on this show. She was not one to throw around the love word. She was instead looking at this like a real world relationship where if this man is going to be proposing to me over the course after just 6 weeks, I need to be sure that I know this guy. Granted, she did not read the room as often as she should, and I think that got her in a lot of trouble in terms of her just speaking her mind when other women were kind of, frankly, freaking out that they didn't get enough time with Grant. But anyway, all that to say, I thought the biggest moment was when she said that she tells only basically 1% of people in her life about her epilepsy, disease that she has and how she has seizures. And she told Grant on their one-on-one date in Las Vegas that she has epilepsy. And I think in that moment, she found herself being so vulnerable. And she then was questioning how real this was because she had shared this incredibly deep secret that she has with this man who she felt like she wasn't getting to know Grant as well as he was getting to know her. And then at that point, she felt like she was playing catch up the rest of this season. And I think in a lot of ways, not to the point that Devin spiraled in Jen's season, but I think in a lot of ways found herself getting into her own head. And I think that ultimately working against her. So I thought that provided some context into why we saw a lot of her behavior, not to excuse all of her behavior, not the pouty thing in Scotland, not to excuse all that. But I thought it provided some important context into her line of thinking.
I do get that, but she said it more than once where she was like, well, this was a waste of time. Like, I shouldn't have, it was a waste to tell him that. It was a waste to do this. And it's like, it's not, because you're trying it out. You're seeing if this person's right for you. You're not going to know until you reveal something about yourself,
Sure.
and they do the same thing. You know what I mean?
But
like,
he didn't do the same thing, and I think that was her problem.
They didn't have any time for him
Not that we know
because
of.
she used all her time with him to talk about, like, is this real? Did you say this? Like, all that stuff.
And I think that was her spiraling and getting in her own head.
Yeah, but
That's
like
exactly
she could
what
have
I
been
think was
asking him
happening.
questions about himself. She could have been using that time to get to know him. She could have been pulling him away for secret smooches and other things. But, she didn't. She used it for drama, more or less,
Exactly.
And I think she was sort of her own worst enemy on this whole thing. It could have gone completely different for her, I think.
Gina, do we find
Absolutely.
it interesting, Gina, that she has not done, and she didn't interview with you. She hasn't done any podcasts. No. She's done, frankly, as far as I've seen, no interviews with anybody. Do we find that surprising in the sense that she's not out there trying to, quote unquote, clear her name, so to speak?
Well, here's the thing. Maybe she just isn't available. I have a feeling she wants to talk. She does talk on her TikTok. So if you follow her TikTok, one of the things that she posted last night maybe, or the day before, or something to that. Well, I don't know the date, but she did post about how if when you're watching, Women Tell All, and you see all these women, interrupting me, it's just that they would get screen time. They're trying to get screen time that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Yeah. So she's throwing jabs.
So rude.
And I don't know. Here's my thing about Carolina. She talked about, to the point you brought up, Ryan, she talked about, taking a risk and not, having done it for nothing and all of that. As we all know, there is that old phrase, it's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. You have to try. You have to be able to put yourself out there and make the lead and make this person really want to be with you. She shared something very important to her, very personal. And that's great that she was able to do that. That's a win for her. Being able to, as Jen said, she wasn't expanding on their connection later on when, everybody, other people were getting dates. If you want to maximize your time with the guy, don't sit there and complain about everybody else.
Yeah.
Don't sit there and bring in, you said this, you did this, or this person did this.
Well,
no. Let me finish.
All right,
Rose,
Carolina.
let me finish.
There she is. Gina and Carolina are more alike than we think.
No,
That's
they would
all I
fight to
have
the
to say.
death.
I know. I would love it. Get your popcorn ready.
My point of that whole thing is that use your time wisely. If anybody has watched any amount of time watching this show, you have to use your time wisely. She did not do that. And as far as the Rose, Carolina, Grant thing, she made it, Rose said it. They were having a personal conversation. They were comparing notes. She was laughing about it. And they were, and she didn't think there was a problem. All of a sudden, there was was, Carolina going to Grant saying that this was said. So
but it wasn't said.
Someone who, yes, it was.
It was not in the context that how Rose said.
They played the thing, and they all took accountability.
Right, exactly.
Grant took accountability for saying, yeah, bad communication on my part.
Right.
Rose said, oh yeah, bad, misunderstanding on my part. Carolina said, oh yeah, well Grant said this, so I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
She didn't take any accountability in making a drama about it. She just said, oh, yeah, well, once Grant took accountability, then I was fine.
Because she was cool at that point because freaking Rose had told her that he was thinking about her when he was kissing and dancing with Carolina, but he never said that.
He did say it.
No, he did not. He did not say in that moment. He clarified it by saying when I was dancing. So if you're Carolina, who's already spiraling, and she says, Rose says, well, you know what? He told me when he was dancing with you, he was thinking about me. Of course she's going to freak out.
Sure.
And don't for the life of me, either of you two tell me that if some guy did that to you, you wouldn't do the same thing.
I would ask.
Of course you would, and that's what she did.
Yeah.
She asked.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's my whole point about this whole Carolina situation.
But then she didn't let it go. She did let it go.
No, then she did.
She would not let it go. She still hasn't let it go.
She did. She goes, well, she said, like, Gina just said it.
Yeah,
she said that Grant was accountable for his actions, and it's all good. That's basically what she said.
It still comes up
now
over and over
at Women
again.
Tell All. She said that when they filmed it.
Exactly.
But not throughout the whole episode. Or throughout the whole season.
Throughout the whole season, that was one part of one season or one part of one episode.
She didn't let it go. And she made it into the point like everybody hates me because I did this. Well, no, that's not true. It wasn't true. And everyone tried to tell her. She took it as I'm the victim now, because I said this, everyone hates me. No, that's just not true.
I feel like Grant in the hot seat right now. That's exactly what I feel like. And I feel just as uncomfortable as Grant did in the hot seat yesterday.
Grant.
Poor Grant. He came out. He's like, I was watching his mannerisms. He comes out. He's like messing with his tie and like fixing himself. And
Some people are saying he doesn't seem happy.
He does not seem happy.
But
and
do you
I thought
think it was
that
the
at the end.
circumstances?
He was in the middle of a drama. I wouldn't be happy either.
Listen,
Jesse wasn't happy.
Have you guys
Grant
ever
wasn't
seen
happy
the
either.
movie Ghosts of Girlfriends Past with Matthew McConaughey?
Yes.
That bar scene when he walks in and all of his old girlfriends are there? That's exactly what I thought of. I'm like, poor Grant. I wouldn't wish this on anybody. So I could certainly understand why he was feeling as uncomfortable as he did. We've already touched on, his conversation with Gina, with Carolina, the chubby bunny thing. It was whatever. There was far too much of Parisa in this episode for someone who was another non-sequential character in this season. There was far too many cutaways of Parisa in this Women Tell All.
Imagine her
for
with
me.
the crabs in paradise.
Oh my goodness. I have a feeling.
it'd be great.
I have a feeling we will not see Parisa in Bachelor Land again. That's my prediction.
I hope we do. Okay, I hope we do.
Well,
but
I hope we do too. She was
right.
really sweet. You weren't there when we had the conversation with her. I do feel like she's really sweet and I liked her.
Listen, she may be sweet. I'm not saying she's a bad person. I'm just saying she got way too much FaceTime for someone who was frankly not a central character.
Did it take away
in this
from her
season.
time with from Carolina time?
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is the person
because
that you
she
wanted to
was
watch?
the central
There you go.
character, right? We needed, if I'm the producer, I'm like, let's stick what people want to hear. That we don't really care about Parisa and the chubby bunny. But listen, I thought that was a good lighthearted moment.
We needed it. We needed some lighthearted.
Nobody does promotions better than ABC Walt Disney. We can all agree on that. We all work for this wonderful company where we cross-promote things all the time, ad nauseum, as some would say. And I thought it was really cool how they did that with the mirror on the wall, the Snow White coming out. Snow White comes out. When does Snow White come out? I feel like I should know this.
The 21st,
There
I
you
believe.
go. So I thought that was a good way for them to incorporate a lot of the questions that we had, to bring in the bloopers. And to your guys' point, we did finally get that conversation with Rose and Grant, although it would have been great if we had had the conversation with Rose and Carolina. That's what I was hoping it was going to go to. Like they found some hidden security footage of them in the room discussing that whole thing.
I would love to see some more behind the scenes in the mansion stuff.
That would be great.
You know,
that would be great. I thought
there's a reason they leave it out.
I thought they did, yeah, exactly. I thought they did a good job of kind of getting all of that stuff with the cross promotion with Snow White. I thought that was a fun way to do things.
Sure.
Gina, what was your final take on everything that you saw?
I'm just thankful that we won't have to hear about Carolina.
I am
for
also
the next
thankful
couple
about
of.
that.
Are you sure about that?
I am happy.
I feel like maybe
listen,
you're not. I feel like you want to talk about her all the time
because
and
listen,
defend her.
now we have to
because
talk
she's
about
so-
listen. Bachelor in Paradise is coming up, right? And we also have the finale that they've teased. We still have Fantasy Suites.
I'm so
and,
excited to see how this wraps
You know,
up.
he basically tells Juliana that he's falling in love with her, reiterates to Latia that he loves her and that he's fallen for her. So, but to your point, Jen, when they got done showing the trailer for what's to come, and Jesse and Grant are standing there at the end of this episode,
Yeah.
Grant did not look happy. He looked uncomfortable. He looked like he kept looking down. He couldn't even look at the camera. So that leads me to my final question before we wrap up this wonderful podcast, ladies. What is your prediction for what happens here?
I'm still hoping he ends up happy with one of the remaining three. So I'll leave it at that. I'm hoping it was just a long day of filming, and maybe that was why he looked the way he looked.
Gina?
I'm in that. I feel like that's probably what happened. Also, I mean, he did say he was happy. He told us just recently,
He did?
last week,
So
that he's
did
happy.
Jen, though.
So, well, at that point, she was.
That's a
at
good
that point.
point.
She was. So, I feel like, as of now, I mean, it could have just been feeling a little ill from the Chubby Bunny contest. Not being ready for that.
Did they
I
spit
don't
those
know.
out? They swallowed those?
I hope they spit those out.
Look, they walked
lot of
off
peeps.
stage to spit
That's a
those
lot
out.
of
I
peeps.
didn't see it. That's again not violating anything. Like they didn't spit them out in front of the audience. They went off stage and got rid of the Chubby Bunny.
It's been fun hanging out with my peeps as always.
Oh, no.
And if you like our podcast, what do you need to do, Jen?
Like and follow us.
Like and follow us. We are Playing the Field. She is Jen. She is Gina. I'm merely Ryan. Thanks so much for being here at another great edition of Playing the Field. We'll see you next week.